Knocking within the bone. Tinnitus is not a sound. It is the friction between two layers of reality, neither of which is willing to yield. I sit on the edge of my bunk, a sodium lamp dying above my head. Its light does not illuminate the room, it infects it, spilling a thick, amber bile that makes the shadows in the corners seem sticky, almost tangible. This is my golden hour, the moment when the sun of a supposed civilization hides behind a horizon of metal structures, leaving us in eternal twilight. In my right hand, I hold a needle. It is cool, made of polished titanium that has undergone a process of intentional oxidation. Under my thumb, I feel every microscopic scratch, every indentation in the neural grip designed to prevent the tool from slipping when hands tremble from an adrenaline surge or a lack of blue dust. It is heavy, balanced so perfectly that it feels like an extension of my nerves. "Drive it in already," whispers a voice that smells of wet concrete and old iron. "Feel the steel kiss the bone. You've earned the right to stop hearing your own heartbeat." "Silence," I mutter under my breath. "Not yet." "Oh, look at him!" Another voice, high and shrill like glass grinding against glass, laughs directly into my ear. "The proud captain of a fallen fleet. He thinks he commands time, yet he is but an insect trapped in a drop of amber. Your pride is an empty ration tin, Victor." I stand up. My body is a cathedral erected to honor ancient victories, now falling into ruin. Every step is a grind of joints that remember the gravity of 3 different suns. I approach the porthole. Outside stretches the rust belt. Shipwrecks drift in the asteroid belt like whale skeletons washed up on the shore of a dead ocean. The light of a nearby white dwarf cuts the space in two. Blinding glare and absolute devouring blackness. I raise the needle to my neck. "It's for the good of the mission," I lie to myself. My vanity tells me that only I can navigate through the shroud. Only I, a man who burned his own conscience to have something to warm his hands with during the winter in the void. "Liar!" thunders a bass rumble from somewhere near my stomach. "You take it because you fear the silence. You fear that once the voices vanish, all that will remain is the truth of what you did aboard the Prometheus." I drive the needle in. The pain is brief, symphonic. Blue fluid pours into my veins, and the world suddenly becomes sharp. I see every speck of dust dancing in the sodium glow. I feel my senses expand beyond the ship's hull, reaching into the vacuum. We are humans. We trampled the gods to steal their fire, and now we use it to singe each other's wings. Suddenly, the radar emits a dry, choking sound. On the screen, amidst the static, an echo appears. It is not a wreck. It is something moving against the current, ignoring the laws of physics we so laboriously cataloged. "That is no echo, Victor," the voices whisper in chorus, sounding harmonized and terrifyingly sober for the first time. "It is an answer to everything we have done, and it did not come to negotiate." I stare into the darkness of the porthole. Something gargantuan, larger than any flagship, obscures the light of the white dwarf. The golden hour has come to an end. A night is approaching that no sodium lamp will light. My hand tightens around the empty needle. I am strong. I am human. But for the first time, I feel that is decidedly not enough. Something knocks at the airlock, not from the outside. The knocking comes from within my own bones. The knocking inside the bones was not a sound. It was the resonant frequency of evil. "Open up," wheezes a voice in the back of my head, the one that always reminded me of rotting fruit. "The guest has traveled parsecs to count your sins. It wouldn't be polite to keep him in the vacuum." I bolt upright, throwing the needle onto the metal floor. The clang of titanium against steel hits my eardrums like a kinetic cannon shot. Dopamine and blue dust build an architecture of ice in my veins. I see the world against the light of the white dwarf. Everything is either blindingly white or absolutely black. There are no intermediate states, just like in my soul. My hand clenches the handle of the flight controls. It is made of a rough carbon composite, cold and unyielding like a corpse's grip. Under my fingers, I feel every switch, every protrusion of the neural interface. My fingers tremble, but it isn't fear, it is hunger. Pride whispers to me that this ship, This hunk of junk christened lament is the only thing standing between humanity and ultimate erasure. Initiate ignition sequence, I force out, my voice sounding like grinding gravel. Look at him, the little god in a tin can, mocks a voice smelling of ozone. He wants to shoot at the darkness. Good luck, David Sling. Outside, the vacuum ceases to be empty. The shadow that eclipsed the sun begins to peel. It is not a single monolith, it is a swarm. Thousands of needle-like structures, both organic and mechanical, gleaming like obsidian in the star's light. They do not use engines. They warp the space around them, creating a visual echo that makes them look as if they are bleeding darkness. The enemy's first volley is not fire. It is a gravitational strike. The lament groans in its metal ribs, and my vitals shift a millimeter toward the bulkhead. Return fire! Dispersed thermobaric volley! Now! My thumb presses the trigger. I feel the ships kick. Cylinders drop from the launchers, matte, heavy drums that felt as heavy as a murderer's conscience when I was loading them. In the vacuum, there is no sound, but I hear their roar in my bones. Explosions bloom like blood-red poppies on snow. The white dwarf illuminates the fireballs, which instantly freeze into ice crystals, creating a ring of destruction around us. Hit! Sunk! Shrieks a voice resembling a child's hysterical laughter. You killed them, Victor! You killed them all! But look, they are merging. My vision, enhanced by the drug, catches details no human should see. The debris of the enemy units does not drift. They crawl toward one another. They combine, forming a new, larger shape. This is not a battle. It is a biological process in which we are merely an infection the organism is trying to fight off. Increase thrust. Shift to event horizon mode, I scream, though I know the price will be high. The ship howls, the engines spit antimatter, and the G-force pins me into the seat. My face contorts, skin stretching over my skull like parchment. I see the lament tear through the cloud of obsidian needles. We rip them apart with the force of our momentum, cutting their hulls like a razor cuts silk. I feel every impact against the plating. It is like the scourging of my own body. Suddenly, in the midst of this chaos, comes silence. Absolute. Before us, at the very edge of the rust belt, a void opens. There are no stars there, only an opening, a geometric perfection of nothingness that sucks us in. This is no portal, fool. The whisper of all the voices at once is so quiet I can barely hear it. It is an eye, and it just blinked. The radar screen goes dark. The sodium lamps in the cabin explode, leaving me in absolute darkness. I feel the blue dust in my veins begin to burn. My hand still grips the controls, but the composite is no longer cold. It is warm. It pulses, as if the ship had come alive. I hear footsteps outside the airlock, slow, heavy, the same knocking I heard in my bones. Who's there? I ask, but my voice doesn't leave my throat. In the darkness of the cabin, a single, small emergency LED flickers on. In its weak red light, I see my hand. It is no longer human. It is covered in obsidian scales. The darkness in the cabin was not an absence of light. It was a substance, a thick tar that coated my lungs. My hand, that alien, obsidian glittering thing, no longer belonged to me. It was an instrument tuned to a different scale of being. Look at this beauty, gasped the voice that always sounded like tearing silk. Finally, you are complete, empty yet full, the symmetry of the fall. Be quiet, snarled another, the one of wet concrete. He is dying, can you feel it? The heart slows, it is the rhythm of a funeral drum. No, not yet, I croaked, and blue smoke, the remnant of the burned dust, escaped my mouth. Then the airlock, that heavy steel barrier I had bolted with a convict's fury, began to melt. It didn't explode. It liquefied like wax, flowing onto the floor in a silence that hurt the ears more than any scream. Light poured inside. It was not the yellow of sodium lamps, nor the corpse-like glare of the white dwarf. It was a pearlescent, opalescent light, reminiscent of moonlight at the bottom of a deep, clear ocean. In the threshold stood a figure. It was neither inhuman nor human. It was an idea of form. Its body seemed woven from threads of white fire and liquid silver. It had no face, only a smooth plain in which my own ruined wreck of a man was reflected. It reached out a hand. Its fingers were long, tipped with a light that cast no shadow. "Don't take it!" wailed the chorus in my head, suddenly terrified, losing their dominance. "If you touch him, we will cease to exist. You will be alone, in the silence. You hate the silence." I lashed out at them in my thoughts, silencing them with the remnant of my will. My obsidian hand, heavy with trauma and pride, trembled. The stranger did not move. He waited with the patience of a star that had witnessed the birth and death of thousands of civilizations. I felt the touch of this being beneath my fingers. It was not metal. It was not skin. It was like touching a childhood memory I never had. The warmth of the first summer morning, the weight of a blanket, the feeling that home is not a place, but a state of being. In a single second, the obsidian scales on my skin began to crack and fall away like burnt bark from a tree. The blue flame in my veins went out, replaced by the calm, steady flow of something pure. The voices began to quiet. They did not vanish in agony. They fell asleep. One by one, like instruments in an orchestra that had finished playing a tragic requiem. "Why?" I asked, and for the first time in years my voice was clear, stripped of the grit of hatred. The being did not answer with words. It transmitted an image, a seed growing in the very heart of a fire. I understood. My pride was an armor that had to burn so that what was inside could finally breathe. The rust belt outside began to change. The obsidian needles that had cornered us were not an army. They were cocoons. Now they were bursting, releasing beings of light that straightened their wings in the vacuum, turning the battlefield into a garden of stars. "Sleep," whispered the last voice, the one of wet concrete, now sounding like the gentle patter of rain. "Finally, you are free." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of possibility. The lament ceased to be a coffin. It became a boat on a calm lake. I stood up, feeling a lightness unknown to any gravity. I looked at my hands. They were clean, strong, human in the best sense of the word. The alien figure receded into the glow, pointing the way beyond the horizon of the white dwarf, towards systems forgotten even by the gods. I stepped out of the airlock without needing a suit. The vacuum was no longer cold. It was a promise. As the ship moved forward, carried by a wave of pearlescent light, I looked one last time toward the dying sodium lamp in the cabin. It went out on its own. But at the edge of my field of vision, where demons once lurked, I saw something new. A shadow that was not an enemy, but a companion. A small, dark speck at the very bottom of my eyes, reminding me that salvation is never the end of the road. It was only the first step, and I felt that my steps no longer belonged only to me.